Okay, hi Hugh and Tanya. By the time you see this video, you've probably already looked at the drawings, but I wanted to make a little video walkthrough just to kind of clarify some things, hopefully answer some questions, and just go through things in a little more detail in an email. So we'll start on the bottom left here. This is the demolition site plan. So this is based off the everything existing. So this is kind of the outline of the deck at the back, and then this is the portion of the cottage to be removed. And then all the shaded stuff up at the front there is basically untouched, more or less. So this will be more for the building department, kind of getting ahead on some of these drawings for them, just showing what all the existing conditions are, so they have a clear understanding of what's there now versus what's going to be there in the future. So basically all the work that's going to be done is at the back there, and that's pretty self-explanatory. So I've had to these dashed lines here on the sides, these are the approximate property lines. So I don't know exactly where they are, but I mean they'll be close. This is where the survey may or may not come into play. I measured from this corner here to this corner of the neighbors, and that was about 13 feet. So I've sort of split that difference, and I know Hugh, you said it was sort of a pie-shaped lot, so that one, is on a bit of an angle. This one on this side here on the left, that one won't be as important because we have lots of space over there. But this one, I mean, you're getting pretty close to the neighbor there, so that one may come into play. So then we move over to the right. This is the demolition plan, again showing more or less what's there existing. I wasn't too concerned with the layout of these bedrooms and whatnot back here because they're all just going to be removed. So it was more of the overall footprint of that back, getting that dimension right, and then everything in here is to remain, right? So everything dashed, I've noticed there, or noted there, everything dashed is basically to be demolished. So it'll be that deck, and then everything in here. The tricky spot will be right in here because there is a 6-foot block foundation wall that's right underneath that that line where the cottage steps up about 4 feet. So I think it makes sense to leave that foundation wall in place because that's what's holding up the roof and everything, going this way. So I think it makes sense. We'll see this on the proposed plan that we'll leave that 6-inch wall there and then probably do a new foundation wall right up beside it. So that'll be a little bit thick there, but then we can go through that in a second. So that's, again, this isn't super critical, this stuff. This is going to be more for the building department. But this is what I went through and measured everything for. And again, same thing for these elevations. So this shows everything as it is right now, just so that when it comes time to remove everything that's coming off, we have a good understanding. And then now that I have all the heights and everything, it's going to be a lot easier to figure out exactly, where roofs and things meet up, and we have all the right heights and distances and stuff like that. So we're over that hurdle, and that's a good one to get past. So this is looking at the sort of the main side of the cottage here, and again, like we'll remove that deck. This chunk here. This shows the stairs inside, and this is that foundation wall that I think should probably remain. It'll make things a little bit easier because then again that's holding everything up here. So if we take that foundation wall out, I mean that's going to start to compromise this roof and stuff, and we'll have to have a lot of temporary supports and things. So in terms of construction, that's probably the easiest way to go. I'll have a conversation with Cliff about that, but that's how I'm approaching it right now. And again, these aren't done by any means, so these need a lot of notes and dimensions and things on them, but at least it gives you an idea. I wanted to send something your way so you had something to look at. This is the other side of the cottage, more or less the same thing, leaving everything up at the front, removing that back portion there, and the deck as well. And then this is the front. Whoops. You won't see too much from the front, other than you'll see a lot of that roof being removed. And then this wall right here will be gone as well. But then that's pretty much it for those. And now we'll get into the good stuff here. So this is, I'll go into this one first here. So I've drawn this floor plan almost exactly as you had on your sketch. So I've tried to match that as close as I could. And it's pretty darn close for the most part. There's a few things. There was no accounting for the thickness of the walls, so that eats up a little bit of space. I mean, each one of these walls on the interior is at least 4.5 inches. So, and then everything on the exterior in total is going to be about 6 inches, give or take, maybe 6.5, something like that. And you asked about wall thicknesses for the window order. So I would, at this point, I'm assuming it's going to be a 2x4 stud wall. That should give us enough room for insulation, considering it's only a 3-season building. If it was going to be winterized, I'd probably bump those up to a 2x6 so that we can get a little more insulation in there. But given that it's a cottage and it's not really winterized as it is, I think 2x4 is a safe assumption. And that'll give us enough room for some insulation just to keep things cool in the summer and warmer in the winter. So let's go through this in a little more detail. So then this right here is that existing wall with the block foundation underneath it. So that I think will remain, and then we'll basically have to double that wall up to put the new foundation wall under here. And then that will, if there's a new foundation wall running from side to side there, that means like this whole back half is well supported on its own. If anything were to settle or anything, the front and back are going to be a little bit independent that way. So then if you wanted it, in 20 years, if you want to replace the front half, you can do that without really touching anything in the back. So I think that works pretty well. So the stairs are moved back. You get tons more space in the dining room. I haven't touched anything in the kitchen. I mean, there might be a little bit of a mess here on this wall as things come off and the ceiling gets disturbed and stuff like that. But generally, this is what you had drawn. So the dimensions that you gave, I tried to keep those dimensions for the interior, like wall to wall of the rooms. So like this was 10 feet. That's showed now as a 10-foot 2. So I mean, they're pretty darn close. This hallway is a little bit wider. It's about 4'4", and that was the result of a couple things. So I mean, this dashed line here is the line of the existing eave. So I've tried to match that. I think it makes sense to just you carry that line up. Makes things a lot easier as opposed to going one way or the other. And same thing over here for that whole side. Now we did talk about this corner, potentially bumping that in. I mean, your original sketch had that in about 2 feet. You talked about maybe moving it out a foot or two. And I think to get the dimensions that you wanted sort of side to side, I basically had to use that space. Now we can tighten this up a little bit. Like that hallway doesn't need to be quite 4.5 feet. I mean, it is sort of nice that way, actually, to be honest, but that could get tightened up a little bit. The one leading into the master bedroom here is 3'3", so that one's pretty wide as well. But to get the distances, so like these bedrooms are 11 feet wide, these are 12, and by the time you do that, basically, this wall is going to be flush with this wall over here. Now, I'm just going to jump over to the site plan here. So this one shows this exact same floor plan on the right. This is the outline of it here, with updated dimensions and everything. So you can see, like, this is on less than 5 feet from what I assume is the property line. So again, we're getting pretty close, and we may have to jog that back a little bit if that's the case, which isn't the end of the world. Shouldn't be too hard to do that. But we might have to tighten things up a little bit side to side just to make it fit within the setbacks and stuff. So just back to the floor plan now. You asked for a couple things. Pocket doors in the washrooms. This one's no problem down here. That's nice and easy. The dimensions aren't quite the same. You had 4 feet by 8 feet, I think it was. 4 feet's not quite enough depth. I mean, I added an extra foot just so you could get by the toilet to get into the shower. Otherwise, it's only like 18 inches, which that's pretty tight to get through there. But it's shortened up a little bit by 7 inches, just so that these walls line up, so that's easy to frame. But I mean, it's no big deal to stretch that out a little bit that way. This washroom up here, you asked for a pocket door as well. This one will be a little trickier just given the layout of the doors. We can probably do it, but we might have to juggle some things here. Because I mean, if you have a pocket door here, it's going to have to nest in this wall, but there's really not going to be enough room unless it's a really, really narrow pocket door. You know, like just over, you know, maybe 2.5 feet or something. And even then, it might not work. That said, we could probably move this door, we could move it down a little bit, and that would give it room to nest kind of down here. But then this door would be entering kind of into the side of that bed, which is, you know, that's not ideal either. So, but that's something we can play with. And again, so I drew this basically to try and match that sketch that you had, so I haven't really had a chance to play around with it and tweak things at all. So I still want to do that a little bit, and particularly in this area here. Because you wanted to widen that laundry space a little bit, so now it's 4 feet by 5 feet. I haven't shown a door, but I'm assuming it probably makes sense to have it off this hallway here. And that could be little bifold doors or something, or one big door. Or maybe that could even be a sliding door too, actually a pocket door potentially in there. But these closets, I'm assuming you probably didn't want this closet kind of encroaching into this bigger room here. And there's a lot of extra space kind of up here, so I'm thinking I'm going to play around with this a little bit, because I'm thinking there's probably a way to do a closet kind of in this corner, and then that maybe alleviates that closet there, which opens this room up. And it depends how you want to orient the furniture too, because if that closet's gone, it probably makes more sense to do the headboard along this upper wall coming into the space here, so I mean you get this view out here. Also, I wasn't sure exactly where you wanted the windows. Some of them were pretty clear, but I wasn't sure. Like maybe you wanted a window on here might be nice for this room, because honestly, I think you might be able to see the water through there. And this master bedroom, I think I wasn't totally sure, but it looked like you had a window sort of wrapping around this corner, which makes sense because I mean that's the water view for sure, right? There's certainly room for another one if you want, like up here or even up here, but I know those neighbors are not too far away either, so maybe it's a privacy thing. But anyway, this is pretty darn close to what you had, and I think it's working really well. It's definitely nice and efficient and everything. The overall dimensions definitely got a little bit bigger than what you anticipated by, you know, a foot or 2 feet, 1.5 feet, something like that. Again, that was mostly just the thickness of the walls. Every time we go through a wall, we're adding 4.5 inches. So, I mean, you're adding that, you know, an extra foot up, 1.5 feet going this way, same thing going this way. So that added a little bit to the overall area, but I mean, that's pretty minor in the grand scheme of things. A couple feet's not a big deal. Another thing was, if we're just going to do the concrete slab on grade without the crawl space, anything below, we were planning on putting the mechanical stuff down in the crawl space originally. So without that, we're going to need to probably steal one of these closets. I'm assuming stuff like the water heater and all that is going to take up, you know, a good chunk of one of these closets. So that's something to consider. We haven't shown a mechanical space on here. It won't be big. I mean, you know, it could be in there. It could be one of these, maybe close to the laundry makes sense. And again, I want to play with this area here, because I think this can be, we can rejig that area a little bit just to open up this master bedroom a bit. I think the bed would probably make more sense up on this wall. So if this closet was gone, that would help. Although entering in the middle of the room, you're sort of walking into the middle of the bed a little bit, but it's not too bad. So I want to play with that a little bit. Beyond that, it's working pretty well, I think. So what other notes did I have here? I think that covers an awful lot of it. So I mean, like I said, these aren't set in stone by any means. Like, feel free to play with these a little bit. I've also included in that email a blow up of this section that you can just print off on an 11 by 17 sheet and trace over, so that makes things easy to play around with. And again, I want to do a few versions of this. I'll try and tweak things a little bit, see if I can change this area, and maybe just tighten it up a little bit so that, you know, maybe we step back a foot or something here, and that tightens up this hallway ever so slightly, and there's a little bit of room to play there, but generally this is pretty darn close to what you had drawn, and I think it's working pretty well. So I wanted to just pass that along so you had something to look at, and we'll talk soon and we'll go from there. All right, take care.